But the bottom line from that research is that, the bottom line is that it's not just the content of your message that matters when you're trying to persuade somebody, but also the context in which it appears. And so the motivation for that project kind of came from our observation that real-world persuasion happens under conditions that are not all that similar to the way people study persuasion in the lab. So in the lab, and this includes research that we've done, of course, so we're not immune to this criticism, but in the lab, people often give participants one message, manipulate some aspect, and try to understand how that affects persuasion. In the real world, though, that's not really how it works. You know, when you're watching TV or reading the paper or surfing the internet or doing almost anything, you're getting exposed to message after message after message. Some of them you might pay more attention to than others, but there's this sequential exposure that we experience in real life, in real world persuasion. So that research that you're asking about really is our attempt to understand how do those other messages, the prior messages, influence your response to the current message, even when they have nothing to do with each other. And so the bottom line is that those prior messages can have a very important impact on persuasion by creating context that is either ripe for persuasion or unlikely to allow for persuasion. And so what we've found in one study, I'll talk about the other one, not the credibility one, but in one we've given people a message for a department store. It's like an ad basically, but it contains a few arguments for a department store. And we immediately before that message give them a message for something else. So in some cases it's a car, in some cases it was a store, in other cases it's just a biographical sketch of a person. So unrelated topics, or sometimes related, but mostly unrelated. And what we did was manipulate how much information the first message contained. And so the message about the car or the person was either very long or very short. And then they get this message for the thing we're really interested in, the department store, and it's in between. And what we find is that when they first got a short message, this next message seems more persuasive. When they first got the longer message, this next message seems not so persuasive. And so the idea is that the previous message, although completely unrelated logically, this is like watching TV and you see an ad for a car and then an ad for a store. They have nothing to do with each other, but they influence each other, even though they're not logically connected in any sense. And so that when the first message seems very compelling, whether it's because it has lots of arguments, a high credibility source, or almost any other dimension, the next one might suffer as a consequence of being compared to this previous unrelated message that's really, really persuasive. Or on the flip side, when the first message is really lame or really weak, the next message can be much more persuasive than it would have been on its own, because it now seems like the better of all the messages people have seen. And so we've found that you can manipulate persuasion, leaving the target message. Let's say that you only have 3 arguments on a topic. That's like you have a new product or brand. There really are only 3 things you can say. Or there really is only one person who you could reasonably associate with your brand, celebrity or something. That, let's just say that you have these constraints where you're limited in terms of what you can really do. You can still shape the persuasiveness of your appeal just by giving people other unrelated stuff right before you deliver it. And so if you have an only modest case for your brand or idea, you can make it more persuasive by first giving people something weaker. And so it's a classic contrast effect, which is the idea that things contrast is not new. If you touch cold water and then hot water, the hot water seems even hotter. But it's applying that kind of a phenomenon to persuasion, which is something that hasn't been done before. And so the takeaway is that thinking about the background context is as important as thinking about the primary message or arguments you want to share with people if you're really trying to shape their attitudes. So our suggestion that you could enhance